Hello, listeners. Thank you so much for being here tonight with the Lotus Chat ladies. And I'm Laura Benson. I am so blessed to be here with Zian. Hello, Zian.
Hi. Hello, Laura. Hi, Jen.
Hello, Jen. We're
Hi,
so glad that you can be here tonight. All of us are here and we are really excited because we want to talk to you about a really interesting book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And we were just talking before we came on about the challenges of living the untethered life. And so we're really excited to share it with you. We hope that this will encourage you to pick the book up and read it yourself. We are not doing a book report to you tonight. We are just taking the concepts of this book and making it real in our lives and how it affected us. Hopefully you'll get to know us a little bit better, but also it might help you to understand some of the concepts that the author is trying to share. So I am so excited to be here with Zian and Jen. So with that, let's get started. So can I just ask each of you, if you could give me a summary, like an elevator speech of what the book means to you? What if you were to describe the book to someone, how would you do it? Zian, I'm going to ask you first.
Okay. If I were to describe Untethered Soul, it would be how we need to separate, ourselves and our inner voice or inner ego in such a way that we allow things to flow through us without reservations. Yeah.
Very good. Zian, I think you nailed it, but we may have some other things here. So Jen, why don't you share with us, if you were telling your listener friends what this book is about, how would you describe it?
I would describe it as a book that is geared at expanding your heart and your soul in the experiences that you have in your life.
Very good. I love that.
And how would you describe it, Laura?
If I were to describe it, I think what I would say about it is it's a book about a journey that's we all want to take, but some of us may be afraid to take. And that's the journey of awareness and conscious living. And the author describes what that's like. The other thing that I just have to say, Zian said that really touched me is the separateness. Separating that inner voice that keeps us from doing what we want to do, separating us from the fear and lack of courage, and just keeping it open so that we can experience life to the fullest without fear and without hesitation. So thank you for that, Zian. So with that, I would like to open it up to Jen and ask Jen, what if you could share one concept with us, what would that concept be and how did it affect you?
In starting the book, I've actually read this book now twice, and it definitely leaves me with the same, I would say, takeaways and questions. And as Laura mentioned, I invite all the viewers to take away what they get from reading the book for the first time. For me, I personally resonated with, as I mentioned before, the expansiveness of heart and soul when he explains infinite energy and when he explains how the heart can be expansive, how the heart can also, close. And there's a really beautiful chapter that called the secret of the spiritual heart. And that particular one, really, he brings up some examples about how we are basically the ones who can say, okay, I'm going to be open to this experience. I'm going to be open to these feelings. I'm going to be open to whatever comes, good or bad, whatever happens, I'm going to stay open. Yeah. And for me, I know there have been instances in my life where I've closed, and in what Singer explains, by closing myself off because I was afraid of what would happen because I was afraid of the pain repeating itself, that I was in essence closing off that infinite energy that is my soul, which I think is so beautiful and powerful, because if you think about it, we've explained in other Lotus chats where we're all energetic beings. And the minute that we choose to close off to that in our hearts, in that chapter that he explained, it's like you're basically saying no to fully experiencing something, experiencing the joy and the happiness and everything that comes with it, and experiencing all the feelings that come with that experience, good or bad. So yeah, that is one of the things that really touched me. And that chapter on infinite energy, he also explains about how there are certain things that can block it. And he talks about clinginess. And I know as humans, we all want to cling to something good. When we feel good, we want to cling to it. And I love the way he explained that. And it's true. Like when you want to cling to a relationship, oh my God, like you're just lost in this person. You love being with them. You're like, I just want to be with them like morning, noon, and night. And you're in that love feeling. And because you cling to it, you don't allow it to flow. And that is something that I know myself, I've been guilty of. And I'm getting to the point where I realize I need to let things flow, because then I'm not allowing the other person to be who they are, and I can't be who I am because I'm trying to control and keep that feeling because I don't want it to go away. So if you guys can resonate with that, our viewers, our listeners out there, that is a very great chapter to focus on if you want to learn how to go beyond that.
Thank you, Jen. Cian, tell us about a topic, a chapter, or a thought that resonated with you, and how did it resonate?
That's so beautiful, Jen. And I think writing on to the blocked energy that you were talking about, I think it also relates to the idea that when the energy is blocked, we begin to have lots of mind chatters. We begin to have lots of inner voice. And that links to the chapter 2 that resonates with me, that talks about the inner roommate. You know how many times in our mind we have this inner voice, we have the chatter, we have this person talking that I always thought it was me, because hey, hang on, that I'm pretty sure that was me because I'm the only person talking in this room right now. So that's definitely me. But then I remember with Singer's this chapter, he said very clearly, you and the voice inside your head is not you. The voice inside your head is not you. You and that voice is two separate beings. And it took me quite a while to kind of digest that. I'm like, what do you mean? It is me. But actually that inner voice is our past ego, our past experiences, our conditioning from all our life experiences. So in a way, they're like, you know, the person who warns you, danger, danger, check this out. I'm not sure if you're going to go with that guy because your previous experience with another guy didn't quite work out. So it's like a way of like giving us like mental warnings. But relating to what Jen was saying about energy, which is true, if we did not allow those past experience, the ego to pass through, the energy to flow through, then we create all this inner voice and mental energy that actually is not even us. We are two separate, me and the voice inside my head. It's two completely different person, and which leads me to think that maybe I shouldn't think about that inner voice that much. What about you, Laura? What resonated with you?
Towards the beginning, the chapter on tendency or transcending the tendency to close. I think about the example he used in one of the first few chapters, where when we're kids and we're in a car riding with our parents, you know, you see the trees go by and you see the grocery store, and none of that emotionally affects us. We're like, okay, there's the grocery store, there's a tree, there's a dog, all of that. But when we experience something that's painful or something that isn't good, such as we touch a hot stove, such as a parent says something hurtful to us, or we're made fun of as a kid, or we experience abuse, or there's something that is not right, what we tend to do as humans is we push it down inside because we don't know what to do with it. So we just kind of press it in and hope it goes away. Michael Singer says it never goes away. If you don't address it, if you don't feel it, if you don't move through it, it just stays in there and builds a house. And that house is your personality. I wrote down what he said. Your personality is built upon ways of being, thinking, acting, and believing that were developed to avoid pain. And so what he's trying to say is, so we build this house of do's and don'ts to avoid pain. And we get this house built. And then, like Jenn said, we're closed. Nothing can get in that house. We're a fortress. And he uses another example you probably remember of the person that built their house. They never left their house. They just stayed inside, and they read these books about what the outside world was like, but they never ventured out. And finally they started to, and it was like, oh my goodness. That's like our hearts. We learn how to avoid the pain. And so this house and fortress are built, and nothing can get through it. And I think of people that I've met, and I'm sure myself, where we're so closed that no one can get in. No one can see the real us. They see the personality, they see the outside, but we're not really living because we're not interacting as who we are. We're interacting as this personality we built to protect ourselves. So that was the start for me in the book about what have I done and what have I built inside of me to avoid pain, and how can I tear that house down? So Jenn, tell us another example or another thought that he provided that really meant something to you.
So Laura, thank you for telling our viewers and our listeners about your, takeaways, what resonated for you, because when you were describing that, I immediately just started thinking about a story that I was told as a kid. It was a story about the man in the cave.
Yes.
That he was in the cave and he was so scared to go out because that is all he knew. He was afraid of going outside of the cave because, he thought, okay, there's something out there. If I go out, he stopped himself until finally one day he leaves the cave and sees the sun for the first time.
Yes.
And I was thinking, like, I know what Singer's really trying to do. He's trying to get us to see beyond our cave, beyond the things in our mind that have kept us blocked from experiencing life fully. And like for me, when he was describing consciousness, and he describes like when you're centered in your consciousness is always aware of beings and aware of the objects around you. Your senses are heightened. It's the same, like our minds are powerful. Our minds can make us see, feel, think things that may or may not be there. And it goes like, for me, a good example he gave is lucid dreaming. I mean, even when you sleep, your mind is at work and your mind is telling you stories and your mind is creating these fears. Like when you have a nightmare, like for me, I've noticed like when I have these lucid dreams and they're particularly not good, and I you could tell because they're ominous. There's like something in there, or you have dreams of falling, which is like a big fear of mine, or dreams of drowning, or like things like that. I mean, that's really your mind, like even when you sleep, giving you these fears, these inner fears. But the fact is I realized that I could control them through lucid dreaming, which is the act of actually going into conscious awareness while you are dreaming to not only smell, but feel what's going on. So let's say there was one where I was on a ledge, and to my right and my left, it was like a tiny little ledge. And I was asking myself, how did I end up on this ledge? There's only one way to go, right or left. And any small step, I'll fall off this ledge. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to let this dream take me. I'm just going to wake myself up right now. And so I literally woke myself up from that dream because I was like, nope, I'm not going to dream this. There are instances where there are things that are coming at me. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to let that thing get me. I'm going to find a way out. And I usually, like, my brain finds a way out. The same is with us in real life. Like, why do we have to stay in those fears, in those thoughts? Why do we have to stay in those things when we can control our mind to say, stop, Like you don't need to fear this. You don't need to fear that person because that person may or may not remind you of someone from your past. You know, consider this person as a new person that you're going through a new experience with. That's how I took that lucid dreaming chapter, because it totally made sense to me that we can definitely have the power to control our minds from that inner talk that Zian mentioned.
I love that, Jen. And when you mentioned about the part that, you know, you get out from that dream intentionally and consciously, it reminded me what Singer mentioned. Like, you know how he said that you are aware and you are simply being aware of the energy, but don't get involved with that energy. You don't have to get involved with it. And that's exactly what you kind of describe it, you know, like you're aware that your dream, in that lucid dream, you were falling or you were doing something that's not what you want, and you just don't get involved in the energy and you try to get out of it, right?
Yeah.
And that reminded me, like, going into what the Singer mentioned about this is that he mentioned how when your soul is being disturbed by things that's happening around us, we don't really need to action upon something. We just need to simply notice or simply be aware that this feeling is arising from us, but no action is quite needed, you know, and that kind of contradicts to what I usually do, because usually when things arrive or arise, or when I feel very uncomfortable, I always go into an action mode. Like, so what do I do now? What do I get to do now? Or what changes do I need to make? Or what new routines do I need to have? But what Singer's advice is that you simply notice that this feeling is there, or just simply be aware that this is happening. And I love how he puts it in this line. I wrote down this line. He said, we need to be open, because the more you're willing to let the world be something you're aware of, the more it will let you be who you are. You know, sometimes when we keep giving the world a list of how things should be, of how circumstances should be, of how situations should turn out the way we want it to turn out, and we are kind of like limiting our life experience in such a way that we're not open at all. You know, our energy is blocked. We can predict what's going to happen next, but that's not what life should be. Life should be open. We don't know what's going to happen next, right? Yeah. And what about you, Laura? Tell me about.
Thank you, Zian, for that.
Yeah.
That goes into, there were two chapters close together called Letting Go of False Solidity, and then Paying the Price of Freedom. And as I was sharing earlier about the house we build, how do we tear that house down? How do we tear? And when I share with you what the author says as a listener, it may feel like that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. But if you as a listener are at the beginning of your awareness journey, if you're at the beginning of who am I, why am I here, and what's next for me in life, and you have that inner voice that's going, you have that ego that's protecting you, there's so much swirling around, you find yourself focused on what's going on outside, and I call it the fight or flight mode. Do I run? Do I stay? What do I do? What the author says is just to be aware. And when I was new in my journey, I thought that has to be the dumbest thing I have ever heard. Of course I'm aware. I'm breathing, I'm thinking, I'm seeing it. I mean, how aware can you be? I'm feeling the pain because someone's beating me emotionally. But what he really means is take a step back, look at it. Why does that trigger you? What is it about this that makes you feel pain? What is this? What occurrence out here is making me feel like I've got to recoil, or I've got to say something to somebody out of protection with a smart remark or something to push them away? What is it? And so it's being aware of what upsets us, what hurts us, and what triggers that ego to come in and try to protect us. And thinking to ourselves as we just step back, say, who am I that notices this? And he goes into, I always love this because I used to be asked, who are you? And I would describe, I'm a consultant, I'm a coach, I'm a mom, I'm a friend, I'm a daughter. And I listed all these job duties. And Singer kind of takes you away from that to say, if you took all that away, who would you be? And it was powerful for me to really think about, I'm loving, I'm giving, I'm intelligent, I've experienced a lot, I'm creative. And when you can look at yourself in that way, is to really not your job duties, not your titles, not your roles, but who are you at your heart? What's important to you? What do you live for? What's your purpose? It's an awareness that no one can take away from you. And that for me was super powerful.
Laura, thank you so much for saying that. I mean, that question, ask yourself, who are you? Yeah. In the context of coming from the heart space.
Yes.
Cool. And I know we started off by saying that this book can be challenging for the individuals out there, and I put myself in that category, who want to somehow want things a certain way and want life to go a certain way and want that person to be a certain way, because there's one, there's a quote that I heard that there's nothing is certain except change. I think that's how, right?
Yes.
And Singer says that unfortunately life just goes on. You know, he said life is always changing. That is a fact. Attempting to arrange life in the way that you want it isn't going to lead anywhere, because that is, you know, there's no way for me to predict and put things in order at all. And the minute that you realize that, it does put life into a different perspective, that no, I have no control over what happens tomorrow. I have no control of what happened yesterday anymore, because yesterday is gone. And he really wants us to just let go and let us flow with life. And that could be challenging and a bit frustrating, because there are things in life that are going to happen that will cause you pain. There are things in life that are going to make you so angry and frustrated. And, you know, Singer's just trying to help us work through that by learning the art of letting go, which is another one of our Lotus Chat episodes, if you guys want to check that out. But this really flows into that very well. It's almost like a radical idea to just not allow your mind to tell you that you're wrong, or not allow your mind to tell you that, you know, that thing that just happened, oh my God, like my life is going to be completely over. That's it. He's the only man I'm ever going to love. You know, I mean, the mind plays a lot of tricks on you and keeps you there. So yeah, I just, and that's pretty much what I got out of it in the end, is it really is the art of letting go in the most radical of ways, even when you are in a lot of pain.
Thank you so much, Jen. And talking about, you know, staying open, I think Singer also mentioned about how when we make a list of how the world should be or should work out to our favor, we kind of limit our openness as well, which is also tying into, you know, what you just said, that change is always constant and that we should not be attached to that certain outcomes that we have in mind. The one final part that I really want to share that really resonated with me about what Singer wrote was that he asked this really brilliant question, which really stuck through me, even though after I finished reading the whole book. He asked this part, like, whenever you face circumstances in life, what part of you that is being disturbed by this? You know, when pain comes through our life, and that pain is so customized to us, you know, it's painful for me, probably not painful to you, and that's why people see things differently. But when that pain arises in our life, which part of it that we have not let go, which part of our past experience or that inner child experience or that childhood experience that we could not let go, which part of the ego that we could not let go. And I think that is on probably a more deeper scale, but I think even on throughout daily conversations, I realize that sometimes when I talk to people, like recently I spoke to a friend who's into psychedelic experiences that is totally not in line with probably my life experience or my values. I just don't see eye to eye on that. And then I realized that, she was describing her wonderful experience and how it's even better than ETA. And I was like, there's no way. And we went through into the details. I'm like, but it's different, one psychedelic, you have some help, blah, blah, blah. And, with this is so we begin arguing or debating into that, only that I realized, I asked myself this question: what part of me is being disturbed by this? It is her experience. There's no right or wrong. It is completely just a different experience. And I should be aware that there's something in me that's kind of against my values, right? So that is definitely something that I really like what from this book.
Wow, Jenn, thank you so much for that. That was so powerful. And we've all had those moments where we want to, why is it upsetting to us what their experience was? It may not be ours, but if they want to do it, it's their decision. Good, great. I love that though, because that is something that has happened to all of us. For me, one of the last chapters was called The Path of Unconditional Happiness. And I, like everybody else, want to be happy. I have to tell you, I struggle with what is unconditional happiness. Am I just tiptoeing through the tulips and just blissfully happy, and I'm not even aware of what's happening around me? Because if you think about it, all someone has to do is say something, do something, not do something, and then we're not happy again. Or I get a bill in the mail I'm not expecting, and that just takes me orbital, I wasn't expecting that, So I guess what I'm trying to say is we're very conditional when it comes to happiness. I will be happy if my partner does this. I will be happy if I have kids. I will be happy if, and we have this long list and we tie it to what happiness must feel like. I got from the author that we have to look at happiness differently. Happiness is not an external thing. Otherwise, we're never going to be happy. It's never going to happen. No one can make us happy. No one can do the right thing unless we give a script to everyone in our life and say, read it, which is tempting, but no, it's not going to happen. And so what the author tells us is that we have to literally say to ourselves, it doesn't matter what happens on the outside, and just observe it and say, okay, I got a bill in the mail. Okay, I don't have a partner. Okay, this happened to my child. It makes us feel that maybe, I think for me, there's this fear if I don't react appropriately, then it'll get worse, or it will not happen, or if I fight it, I can make it go away. But what the author says is you're limiting your life and you don't know the end result. And both of you ladies talked about having expectations. So what I learned about unconditional happiness is it's separate from what happens. It's inner peace inside, that I choose to be happy. I choose to be content. I choose to be fulfilled. And that's regardless of what happens outside. I will deal with it all, but that's not where my happiness comes from. It comes from inside. And that's a practice that I'm still working on.
Laura, thank you for saying that. And I'm glad that we're giving our listeners and our viewers ways to practice this in their daily life. It is, as Laura mentioned, a process. There's one other thing that Singer mentions about meditation as a way to come to better consciousness and awareness of the body, because ultimately that's what we're doing is we're having that daily practice of realizing and being aware of how things trigger us, how certain people may trigger us, certain experiences trigger us, and asking why. So definitely meditation has been very helpful for me as a way to come to center, to let go of everything around me and just be in myself. Some people practice, breathing exercises to get back to center, or they just, take a step back and say, I'm just going to take a step back from this for now, and we'll revisit this conversation later is another way, especially if you're feeling triggered. But yeah, Singer, again, please, if you have a chance to pick up the book, We recommend it. Again, it is going to challenge you. It is going to bring up questions, and it is definitely going to open your mind, as it has, as you can see, the three of us here today. Do any of the ladies have any additional last words or anything? Wonderful. So I'd like to thank you all for being here with us today, whether you're joining us on Spotify or joining us on YouTube, and to our repeat wonderful people out there. Thank you for staying with us through this journey, for being a part of this with us. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Please do like, share, subscribe, send this to your friends. We would love to virtually meet them. And send us a note at Gmail if any of this has resonated with you, or if you have questions that come up at lotuschatworldwide@gmail.com. And again, this has been another episode of Lotus Chat Worldwide. We Laura and Deanne here this week. And we look forward to seeing you next week for our next episode, which will be discussing the book by Neville Goddard, Power of Awareness. And that's going to be an exciting one. So we look forward to seeing you then. You take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.